backdrop you got there too.
We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, buddy.
Awesome. Let me go in.
Yeah, there's Lisa and Mike. Oh my golly.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
look, I'm actually talking. We're live on LinkedIn. Cool. All right.
There we go.
Yeah. So we're 3 minutes ahead of schedule. You know, I got my frosted flakes in. So we got 5,000 people already, you know, 3 minutes ahead of schedule. So, oh my golly, Randy, this lady named Rita's on.
Let's see some identification, please.
Yeah. I think it's a fake. I think she's a fake. If it's the Rita, I think it is. So anyway, I hope she's not going to heckle us. So, hey, it's 11:58. This is Randy and Teddy, our lunch show, our special guest. We're just getting started a little early to make sure all our ducks are in a row. So hang tight a little bit and we'll be with you. If you have not gone and gotten your biscuit and your cheer wine, you've got 2 minutes to run downstairs and get your biscuit and your cheer wine. Oh. Hey, Rita said hi to her friends, Randy. I wonder who she's talking about.
All of us.
Yeah, all of us, yeah.
Rita was on one of our first shows when we had folks from the resource on to talk about the staffing business and how it works. So I think it's time that we revisit that topic too, with regard to the new year and whether from a staffing firm or from or from an executive search perspective, retained search, just to see what the market's looking like out there.
I wonder if she can help me find an executive role somewhere.
Well, Teddy, she's good, but she's not a miracle worker, you know.
I want $20,000 a day is what I want.
Yeah. I'll split it with you. I'll split it with you. How's that?
No, you won't either, man. Rita said anytime, Teddy. All right, 1 minute before we go live. So, Mike, did you get a decent night's sleep last night?
Pretty good, yeah.
Lisa, are you good?
I'm good. I'm ready. Yes,
Randy,
sir.
you good?
Yeah, I got my beauty sleep in last night, so I'm feeling beautiful today. Do I look it?
Keep thinking that way, buddy.
Let me get my good side here.
Must be the lighting.
Sally thinks I've lost weight. Sally, you only see from here up, girl.
I need to, if I go like this, it cuts the light in. Yeah, does that look a little better? See, I need to put up a shade all around me. See now.
Oh, yeah.
I look like, was that Vincent Price, where they'd hold the flashlight up under his chin and he'd look in there like this and give you that really crazy glare?
All right, it's noon, Randy.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit the record button because we're live.
All right.
Hey, everybody, I'm Teddy Burris. This is my good friend, Mr. Randy Wooden. And you're our honored attendees, or what's the word I should be using? Participants for our lunch with Randy and Teddy. Our special guests today are Ms. Lisa Lamb and Mr. Mike Fenley. And Randy will be driving today in these conversations. For those who don't know me, I'm, again, Teddy Burris of Burris Consulting. We're a social media strategist teaching business professionals how to use LinkedIn. And listen to these words, Sales Navigator as business tools. So I come and show up here to help and create noise, have a little fun, and bring special guests with ideas. Randy, take it back to you, and I'll do housekeeping when you're done.
Sure. I'm playing with mice today too. See, I've got one for each
things, man.
One for each hand and a keyboard, and I feel like some kind of Liberace guy here with got all the stuff going on.
Your mice don't have tails.
No, they don't. You know, I'm in the advanced stage now with this, so I've got it figured out. It took me a few tries to get the battery in there right, though. I was putting it backwards. So, but nevertheless, Randy Wooden with Goodwill of Northwest North Carolina. I run a professional center. As you might expect, that our clientele, typically folks with some level of college, also maybe in a salaried role, professional leadership role, that kind of a thing. We're happy to help you. Goodwill helps folks across all ages, all industries, all skill levels. We also help retrain people with new skills. But again, our program is geared typically to, well, the audience that's here today, whether you're a job hunter or maybe a professional just kind of checking in to see what we can learn today. We're thankful that you're here. And just remind you, go ahead and chat your question in. Teddy is going to monitor that. So Teddy's up to the task of that. We don't do reruns here. You flip on TV and you say, man, I've seen that before. Well, we don't do reruns, but this is the first time we've had the same guests back on, but there's a reason for it. And in case you didn't know, there was an election. There was an election not long ago. And that means change. And so what we wanted to do is to bring back Lisa Lamb. She is with NCWorks. She's the assistant center manager here in Winston-Salem. And she'll talk about what's going on at the state level, North Carolina, what's happening in terms of unemployment benefits, hiring trends, any kind of legislative stuff that might be coming down the pike. And then at the federal level, Mike Fenley, he's here. And again, Mike joins us. So you guys were here back, I think, around April or so when this whole stuff started kicking in. And remember phase 1, phase 2, and all that. And so Mike is the field representative for Senator Richard Burr. So Mike's here to talk about things going on at the federal level. And again, in case you didn't remember, we had an election and there's still Congress to be decided. So we'll talk. We don't want to get into good, bad, and whatnot in terms of the political debate and such, but the game plan here is to get a sense for where do we stand right now? What are some things that are going to be coming down the pike, likely? We'll also take a look back and say, gosh, you know what? What did we learn over the last 6, 7, 8 months? Could we have done things differently? If something like this were to happen again, what could we do differently that maybe we hadn't considered the first time through? So we'll cover all those topics. We'll take your questions. So let's get started. I'm going to just turn it to Lisa first off, and just if you would go ahead and do a brief introduction of yourself and just kind of. What's that now?
What?
Who the heck are you?
Who are you?
Well, I am Lisa Lamb, and I work as the Assistant Center Manager in Forsyth County, and I've been employed with the state of North Carolina for 18, 19 years now. So ultimately, my goal today was to give you a rundown of what it was in the beginning. If you guys tuned in to the session that Mike and I were on the first time, you heard that you couldn't get through to the call center. It was taking weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months for unemployment to get processed. So just fast forward, I calculated the weeks this morning, and we're looking at approximately 32, 33, 34-ish weeks ago, which blows my mind in some senses. So, but again, an update on current payments paid out to date, what the extensions like the PEUC and the PEUA, what that looks like, and just what's to come in the sense of how are we adapting to this change that COVID brought in the sense of connecting job seekers to employers and so forth. So that was my ultimate goal for today's session.
Yeah, good. And Mike, let's turn it to you, Mike. Give us a sense for some of the areas you'd like to tackle today.
Well, there are a couple of things that we can talk about. One is the lame duck Congress that is in session as we speak, and things that are going to be going on in the next few weeks. And then we can kind of center on what's to come in 2021, which is still a big question mark because the election is not completely over yet. And the turnout in Georgia will have some impact on how things work in the Senate. You mentioned the large number of voters. I was just reading a Washington Post article that says, and I quote, "More Americans voted in the 2020 election than any other in more than 100 years." Now, I'm sorry, more Americans voted than any time in history, because 100 years ago, our population was nowhere near what it is today. What they should have said, and what they meant to say, was the percentage of turnout of eligible voters was the greatest in more than 100 years. And looking back at past elections, this one, the projection is that when all is said and done, it'll be about 66.8% of the eligible voters turned out. By comparison, in 2016, it was 60.1%. And the only year that exceeds it in percentage was 1908, where it was 65.7. So this will be the largest turnout ever when all is said and done. The interesting thing with the larger turnout, the margins are still very close all across the country. We right now in the lame duck session, of course, senators who were elected in 2016 and those prior who are still finishing their terms, those that faced re-election this year are still serving and will continue to serve. The one exception to that is going to be Kamala Harris, who is now being called the Vice President-elect, and the state of California, the governor was going to have to appoint someone to fill her unexpired term. We expect that appointment and swearing in to come sometime in early December, so that seat will be filled. But the ratio of Republicans to Democrats will remain the same as it's been for the last 2 years.
Well,
in January 3rd, we opened the 117th Congress, and we'll be short 2 members because Georgia is still up in the air, unless some sort of recount changes things in Georgia as it stands right now. So we'll operate for several days with down 2 senators, but the Republicans will have a majority of 50 to 48, and then several days after we begin the session, the 2 new Georgia senators will be introduced. And one other thing about the election, this is unusual that a state has both Senate seats up for election, as Georgia has. Georgia is facing really 2 elections. One is the regular re-election of Senator Perdue, and the other is a special election. Then when Senator Isaacson retired at the end of 2019, Kelly Loeffler was appointed to fill that term, and the law says, the state law in Georgia says that appointment is effective until the next general election, which was in November. And so they were voting on 2 senators, and she will finish, or whoever wins that seat that Loeffler is running for will finish the unexpired term of Senator Isaacs.
Got you.
So,
yeah, Teddy, what you got?
So Mike, I'm wondering, in 1908, it was Taft versus Sherman. Now, what did they do to get, I think you said 68%?
65.7%.
65
voter turnout.
Yeah, what did they do to get 65.7% of the Americans to vote? They didn't have social media back then.
Well, that's a good question. And they didn't have television back then. Didn't have radio back then. I don't guess, right? We were right in the beginning of radio in the early 1900s. So they really had no mass communication. Of course, the country was a lot smaller, too. The geography was much smaller.
In another conversation, we can bring Greg Borden in to help us because he says he remembers that election.
He and Methuselah. Hey, let's turn it back to Lisa here. Now you're here with the state of North Carolina, so you're up to date on what's going on with the legislative things with the state. I saw this article, Richard Craver wrote it here in today's Winston-Salem Journal, and because I am old school, Teddy, I still get the newspaper, and I cut it out. I actually cut out the article just to let you know. See it right here. And I took my pen and I highlighted stuff. But here's the deal. At the very end of this, I found this fascinating. I need to put my glasses on, but because I won't, I'll read it from out here. It says about 31%, 3 out of 10, almost a third of the population of the 4.32 million North Carolinians who are considered to be part of the state's workforce. 31% of those folks have filed for state or federal unemployment claims as of mid-September. So about a third of the population has lost a job between now or mid-September and back, I guess, in March. That's incredible. So what's the state, what are some things that are happening right now with the state in terms of helping who may be going through some very, very rough times?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me break that down for you more on a local level, because I can tell you exactly what we're doing. The state basically had to reinvent themselves and had to adapt and adjust to COVID-19 in the sense of technology. Staff were sent home on March 30th, the afternoon of March 30th, and began teleworking March 31 up until about mid-summer, when the centers, specifically in this region, opened back up, staff started teleworking and so forth. So we either reinvent ourselves or we become obsolete in this environment that we're currently in right now. So we work with employers to do virtual job fairs, virtual events. We have even, there are 23 workforce development boards across the state of North Carolina. And the PTRC has been, which is the region that we are in, Piedmont Triad, has been partnering with Guilford Works. That was just an event last week where we had a regional job fair. So workforce boards are partnering together. Workforce boards have initiatives to reach those job seekers. The Piedmont Triad region has an NCTriad initiative, developing new websites to just get a further reach of these individuals. Now, the state of North Carolina re-implemented the Reemployment Services and Eligibility Assessment Program, which basically what that is once an individual goes into a PACE status, they are required to conduct a telephone appointment with your local career centers. We were able to touch many more customers that way as well and give them an introduction to the local centers, who we are, what we can do, and even some of who our community partners are and what they can do. We're not the unemployment office at all, but we are not just the unemployment office. There's a plethora of resources that we can provide to individuals who may need them on a day-to-day basis. So that's how we've kind of had to readjust ourselves a little bit.
Teddy's got his, are you muted, Teddy?
Here's a question I'd like to ask the attendees. We got 30,000 people listening here. I'd love for you guys to drop in the chat. Who has ever been to an NCWorks facility? That would, because there's lots of resources there. It'd be great to know, out of the attendees, who's shown up, who's visited. So.
And Lisa, how are you finding it as far as people getting through to Raleigh to be able to file? And I know that was a big tidal wave back in March, April, and May. I am assuming it's easier to get through now, but are people still having challenges?
Yeah, sure they are, of course. I assisted 3 individuals last week in the computer lab with calling the call center for various reasons, and a few rings and they were able to connect. That was absolutely unheard of back when all this first started. The state adjusted well, though. The DES agency adjusted as well as they possibly could. There was adjustment times there. I understood the frustration and so forth, and when the local centers did what we could to assist those individuals. Just to give you, I think you gave that figure a minute ago, from March 15th through November 17th. And this information is updated live every day on the DES website, and I'll be glad to provide the link for you in the chat. DES, just the state of North Carolina, has paid out over $8.6 billion in unemployment in just that, 7-month period. Now that's regular state unemployment, that's the federal extensions like the pandemic unemployment, the extended benefits, any and all of those programs that were up under or passed under the CARES Act back in March and April, that includes all of that. So $8.6 billion has been paid in unemployment. To break it down even a little bit further for you gentlemen and ladies today, claims filed by day. Now this is a week screenshot of numbers. November 10th, 6,220 unemployment insurance claims were filed. November 11th, 4,300, and so on and so on. November 16th, which was just what, Monday, almost 10,000 claims were filed. So there's some fluctuation there for very many different reasons. Holiday layoffs are approaching and so forth. There are employers who temporarily lay off around the holidays that may not be COVID related. So that's going to be just going to continue to trend like that for these next few weeks. Unfortunately, I'm afraid. Forsyth County has a number attached to it, and you're attached to the local NCWorks Career Center by zip code. Forsyth County, as of October 24th, which was a few weeks ago, but it's the last data that I have, there were over 18,000 claimants, and only 3,600 of those were non-COVID related.
Let me ask you this. Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you about, and because I've had this asked of me, and I'm not sure I have the answer straight, so I wanted to ask you:
Okay.
is there a requirement in place right now that says, okay, I'm collecting, I guess I can collect for 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the article, if I file after January, it's going to be extended, I think, to 16 weeks. But during those 12 weeks, am I required to apply for work as maybe in years past? Do I still have to document that, or is that not true at this point?
Okay. That is not true at this point. However, DES and your local NCWorks career centers have continued to encourage you to look for work. Governor Cooper's order.
Because I'm not sure I'm old.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure. So people are not required to look for work at present.
They're for unemployment purposes, no. So, and that is thanks due to Governor Cooper's Executive Order 118, which waived the work search requirement for individuals receiving unemployment. Again, we've never stopped encouraging individuals to continue to seek and look for work, because right now as it stands, and I'm not going to dare, I've been in this business long enough, I know I don't dare speculate as to what I think is going to happen. So these extensions, the additional 12 weeks they're all slated to end December 26th right now at this point. Could that be extended? Sure. Your guess is as good as mine, but the 12/26 date right now would be very concerning to me if I was an individual receiving unemployment insurance benefits, because that is when everything is slated to end at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So we are encouraged, and there are employers hiring. We here in the Forsyth Center had an outdoor open air hire event in which we had 6 employers present, and we tried to have a variety of employers. We had a furniture manufacturer, we had a temporary agency, we had a construction agency, and so forth. So we encourage individuals to do conduct that work search, make the effort, even though you're not required to for unemployment purposes. We still strongly encourage you to do so.
Lisa, question came up, and what, from your experience in the North Carolina, what type of jobs sectors tend to lay off during the holidays?
So you've got some manufacturing companies, of course, and then that's usually the primary ones that we see. But you also have construction companies who lay off during the winter when it may snow and stuff like that, or whenever it may snow. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the winter. But your bigger manufacturing plants deem typically 2 weeks out of the year as a plant shutdown, and that's typically Thanksgiving and Christmas. Typically your manufacturing environments.
We had a follow-up question too. Beth asked, December 26th is the end of what again?
It is the end of all the extensions. Now, Mike may have a little privy or more information on this, but okay, he's shaking. And you guys as claimants may know before we know here in the local centers. I mean, that's just how the information is distributed. But as of December 26th, that will be, or is, the last payable week on the extensions. So you're talking about the PEUC, you're talking about the PUA.
What would they have extended other than the 12 weeks other than the original 12 weeks that somebody would be entitled to, what are these acronyms you're throwing out there? I mean, what does that buy somebody? 10 weeks, 12 weeks extra, 8 weeks? Because I don't know. What's the answer? That's what she's asking is, what does this really mean?
So individuals, I've got my handy dandy little clicker here that is also available on the DES website. I'll put a link there for you guys as well. Yep. Okay, so an individual qualifies for regular unemployment insurance benefits. The regular state unemployment insurance benefits, that's 12 weeks. Okay. From there, a person could potentially move to PEUC, which is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. That allows an additional 13 weeks on top of the 12. At the same weekly benefit amount, you're just getting an additional 13 weeks. Okay. Then there is the extended benefits. Now, the extended benefits is tied into the unemployment insurance rate for North Carolina. So in the beginning, for example, the extended benefits added an additional 9.5 weeks, like 9.8 weeks to an individual's unemployment. As the state unemployment rate has gone down, so has the number of weeks that a person could qualify for EB with the extended benefits. So right now, that is currently 6 weeks.
So they'd get 12 and then 13 and then 6.
6 and then a possible additional, beyond that would be the PUA, pandemic unemployment. And that was typically for individuals who did not qualify for regular unemployment at all, such as your, they called them gig workers, like your Uber drivers and your hairdressers. Anyone who works 1099 is typically not eligible for unemployment because the state does not use self-employment wages to qualify for unemployment. However, because the COVID affected everyone for the first time in almost my 20 years, those gig workers, hairdressers, Uber drivers, and so forth were eligible as long as they could provide proof of income to the state of North Carolina and qualify for a number of weeks. So not every person is going to qualify for these extensions, and none of them are automatic. So you have to make an application for regular unemployment. When that exhausts, you would make the application for PUA and or PEUC once that was exhausted. So if you look at the numbers of individuals who have filed an unemployment claim in the state of North Carolina versus the number of applications, the number of applications is going to be higher simply because one person may have 4 or 5 applications for unemployment on file. Because again, none of these are automatic. An application had to be made for each individual one.
Okay. Well, that answers that.
Hey,
hopefully.
Randy,
Eddie?
you know, Lisa, I get it. I understand why the rules are relaxed during this and not requiring everyone to be looking for a job. But I'm going to tell you right now, from my experience in job search world as a coach, helping people, if you are not out in front of everyone else, I don't care if you're a frontline, minimum wage worker to, whatever other level, if you're not out in front of everyone else looking for your next opportunity, then you're missing out, because you're just going to be in the line with everyone else who decides, okay, now it's time to go look for a job. And you don't want to be that.
Sure.
No, not at all.
And there are people hiring all over North Carolina.
Yeah.
I see signs on factories and in retail locations all the time. So there are job opportunities. One thing I'd like to make sure we make clear is that things that Lisa's talking about are North Carolina unemployment programs, and the whole unemployment system is operated by the states. So every state is a little different. And I think somebody asked about the supplemental money. We had the $600 up through the end of July, and then they had the executive order that provided $300 for a period of time. But all of that was contingent on the state saying, we're going to participate in that. Mm-hmm. So if you are living in a state that doesn't participate, then you're not going to get that supplemental funding. The other thing that I want to add to that is that there is another COVID relief package on the table. There's been one passed in the Senate and one passed in the House. The problem is they're about $2 trillion apart in difference. And there is some conversation going on as we speak to try to narrow that gap. And both sides have given a little bit, but we're still way far apart. And I don't know whether people are playing politics with it or not. I don't really get into the campaign side of things. That's not my role as a field representative of a sitting senator. But I suspect there's some look down the road to see what will the majority look like in the next Congress, and will we have an easier time of passing the COVID package that we want to pass in the next Congress or in this lame duck session? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I know it is a topic that's on the table. Sure.
And what we'll do, I'll throw another question at Lisa, and then Teddy will jump in when we're halfway through the show. We'll wrap up with Lisa, then we'll move to Mike and some of the initiatives and things that are going on at the federal level. We'll, again, welcome your questions if you have them as they relate to legislative, not so much job hunt related stuff. I'm just talking about how can I file, what's coming down the pike, what have we learned, that kind of thing. And then we'll also talk a little bit about our show coming up next week. It's our Thanksgiving Day show, so we'll do that. Another point, Lisa, that you wanted to kind of touch on, and I think you've already done that a bit, but if there's a minute or two that you'd like to throw in about any of the labor market information, something that maybe you wanted to follow up in more detail on. It's a changing landscape, and we're seeing people hiring now. Are we seeing enough workers to fill those openings, for example?
Honestly, no. And it's not that, it's an interest gap more than anything. Employers reach out to us. I'm offering my employees their jobs back, and they're telling me they don't want to come back to work. Unfortunately, that is a real issue that employers are facing. So again, we encourage you to look for work. I can't say a whole lot without getting too political in this sense. So we encourage you to look for work. We encourage you to document that work search. Again, reach out to your NCWorks career centers. In each region, they are operating differently depending on which workforce board they fall under. So reach out, even if it is by telephone, to see what services and resources that these NCWorks career centers can refer you to. I'll give a plug to an event that is happening today. Actually, there is a veterans job fair. I think you shared that, Randy, on your LinkedIn as well, happening today from 10 to 2 p.m. So there's still time to get in there. I'll share that link where you register for that. The first hour was reserved for veterans, but after that first hour, it is open to the public. Anyone and everyone is welcome, free, of course. NCTriad region is doing a huge event tomorrow in Rockingham County. I'll provide the link as to how to register for that as well. Huge companies that are looking for workers. So we've reinvented ourselves virtually to reach, again, put in contact the job seekers with the employers. But in my honest opinion, it's more of an interest gap right now as to why these employers cannot fill these positions.
Gotcha. Hey, Teddy, we are halfway through today. We made it halfway. How about that?
Yeah. So I'm Teddy Burris. This is my good friend, Randy Wooden. This is Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guests today are Lisa Lamb and Mike Fenley. The conversation is all about, job search and how the state programs and state organizations can help us. And Mike's bringing conversations in from the federal level with what's going on that is going to impact you or can influence or help you in this journey looking for a job. This event is, Randy and I have been doing it for 32. This is week 32. And we love to help people. We need your ideas on topics. So if you have a topic, bring it to us. And we're grateful that we can help out. So back to you, Randy.
Absolutely. And so, Lisa, you had a few points you wanted to cover, and looks like we've covered most of that. Any pending legislation that you see coming at the state level at this point? What's that crystal ball? I know you don't like to speculate.
Lisa, you want to borrow my crystal ball?
You got, oh my gosh, you really do have one. This can be my crystal ball. Somebody told me this is like a little, spiky little, somebody told me it looks like coronavirus, but I mean, it is what it
Could
is.
be. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
I'm not currently made privy. Again, I find out most of the cases after it's already been published or put out on the DES website, or I have a claimant calling me about it saying, I got this letter that says this. And I'm like, what does it say? So unfortunately, no, I'm not privy to any of that as to what may be coming down the pipeline in regards to unemployment. Just stay tuned. I'm going to put some links up for you guys in the chat, such as the links as to how to register for some of these virtual hiring events I mentioned. I'll put the DES link as well for COVID-19 information for you guys. I'll do that as Mike's given his little spiel this afternoon for you guys.
Let me offer a tip for everybody that's on here. And that is, if you look at your chat box in the bottom right-hand corner, there's 3 little dots. If you click on those 3 little dots, and I'm pretty sure everyone who looks at chat has this, there is a save chat. So you don't have to copy and paste everything out of there, all this great data and information that Mike and Lisa give. And by the way, Teddy and Randy do as well. Click on that save chat box. It'll save it as a text file on your pooter. And then you can open it up with whatever text file thing you open it up with. Back to you.
Teddy, you are a genius. You are a genius.
I bumped into it by accident when I was reaching for my beer, Randy. I'm like, whoa, what is this?
I'm going to tell your boss, man, you're in trouble now. You are in trouble now. All right, so we're a little over halfway through. Lisa, and I'll ask Mike this as well, but just to kind of put a wrap on things, Lisa, it sounds like there's some stuff that as of December 26th, if those extensions remain, if they don't, I mean, that's really going to impact people. It's right at Christmas time, New Year's and the whole deal. So there's a lot of stuff that might hit the fan. Let me ask you this. Looking back, you know, you kind of do the autopsy. You look back and you go, okay, a lot of stuff happened since March. What could we have done differently if you had a magic wand? And what did we learn? I think you mentioned a little bit about the technical aspect of things. So what could we have learned? What could we have done differently?
Easy for me to sit here and armchair quarterback, as they say. Because again, I am simply in the local centers here. But I think accessibility was an issue, and we needed to be more accessible to these customers, because just a lot of these customers that we encounter, just actually speaking to a live person and letting them tell you their situation. So I think accessibility was an obstacle that we had to overcome, and in some ways are still overcoming it, to be quite honest. So.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you also are improving that every week.
Sure, absolutely. There was no way any agency, DES, the NCWorks, there was no way we could have predicted that COVID would have brought the wave that it did of individuals. Even though the centers were closed, management in the Forsyth Center, myself and my manager and project director and a program supervisor, we were the only ones in the building for several weeks. The lobby remained open so individuals could at least come in and get information as to how to make that unemployment insurance claim, where to go to if you had questions. We had a table laid out. It had flyers. Okay, grab this flyer if you're having this issue. Grab this flyer if you're having this. On an average day, back when all this first started, we would have anywhere between 65 to 100 walk-ins, people coming in wanting to get that information, and then 100 plus phone calls a day, and it was strictly all unemployment. So, as you know, and DES did a good job, I think, with making themselves more accessible, they created the chat box. They worked till 8 and 9 o'clock at night. They worked on weekends. They worked on holidays. So we adjusted as the days went on. And sure, yeah, we've absolutely made improvements and everything. And I've got to give a pat on the back to them, because it was just absolutely insane with the volume and everything, with the volume of customers we were having on a day-to-day basis.
It can get unwieldy. Let's turn our attention now to the federal level. So, Mike Fenley, you're a field representative for Senator Richard Burr. Gosh, we're headed into a lame duck session of Congress. So what does that mean? And help us unravel this whole thing. Where are we headed?
Well, what it means is that those members of Congress that were not reelected or chose to retire at the end of this term, they really can vote any way they feel like. For the first time in their career, they don't have to care what their constituents think. Because they're not seeking re-election, and they won't be back in January. They'll catch a little heat between now and the end of the year, but once December 31st rolls around, their phones will be turned off, and they won't have to answer to constituents. So that could change a few of those unpredictable members of the Senate, for example. We see some on both sides of the aisle that will occasionally cross the aisle, and that's really what the lame duck session means. And then there are several pretty important things that are going on. One is a budget. We have to approve a budget before December the 11th, when the current continuing resolution expires, or the government shuts down, and nobody wants to do that. So we will either see a omnibus spending bill, which includes all of the appropriations that are yet unappropriated and fund for fiscal 21, or we'll see another continuing resolution that will get us into the next Congress. My guess is that there will be an omnibus bill. That's what they tell us. So sometime in early December, first week or two of December, there will be a vote, probably happen at the last minute on December the 11th, to continue the government. So that's number one thing. One of the other things that's separate from that is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the legislation that funds the military and related activities like Veterans Affairs and things of that nature. That bill currently has been passed by House and Senate, although in different versions. So it's in a conference committee, and they're trying to work out the differences. And there are a couple of things. One of the key stumbling blocks is a provision that calls for analysis and renaming of some military bases, including Fort Bragg and others that were named for Confederate war generals and other people who might not have the best image in today's society as they had when the bases were named. And there are two provisions. The Senate bill allows for the military 3 years to study each of those base names and to recommend and make changes. And the House version gives them 1 year and is a little more of a mandate than the Senate version. So that is a sticking point between the Democratic leadership in the House and the Republican leadership in the Senate, and I'm hoping they get it worked out and we get that bill passed, because there's some really good things in it, including an expansion of the Agent Orange presumptive disease list that will benefit a lot of Vietnam-era veterans and a few Korean-era veterans, and I hope that gets passed and we get that taken care of. The look to next year, I mean, they're also the Senate is charged with confirming presidential appointments, and there are some presidential appointments on the floor, and some federal judges at the district and appeals court level that will probably get approved in the next few days. That President Trump has nominated. Some as long as a couple of years ago. It's amazing to me how long that process takes, but it is a political football that gets tossed around a great deal because one senator can hold up a nomination. The other thing that as we look into next year, is that depending on who's in charge come January 3rd, we know Republicans will be in charge for the first 2 or 3 days, but the long-term majority can determine the rules in the Senate, whether there's a 60 vote number or whether it's just a simple majority, whether there's such thing as a filibuster, and just how deep that goes. So that could all change. The other question, and I haven't heard much talk about it in the media lately, the other question I have is about executive order. And as we know, presidents through history have used the power of the executive order to essentially legislate things that they couldn't get through Congress. We have 2 ways of stopping an executive order. One is a vote to just simply override the order, but that takes a majority in the House and a majority and the 60 votes in the Senate. And I don't see that happening much under a Democrat president, considering the way the majorities break down in the Congress. The other is there's legal action that can be taken through the courts to strike down an order that's declared unconstitutional. And then the final way is for the Congress to refuse to fund whatever the order pertains to. So an executive order to, for example, build a border wall can go nowhere if the Congress doesn't ultimately appropriate money.
Mike, on the employment, from the employment standpoint, when it comes to whether it's executive orders or other things, is there legislation that's sitting there on the cusp right now waiting to be perhaps voted on in the lame duck session? And or can the incoming president, whether it's, we presume it's going to be a Biden executive order, can he, with the stroke of a pen, put into motion new legislation, if you will? What does it look like? Because again, I'm focused on the workers and companies saying,
well, there is the version I mentioned it earlier of the COVID relief package, which would include a stimulus check to everybody, like most people got back in the spring. There's additional unemployment supplement in that legislation. There are a lot of things in that legislation that we could pass tomorrow if we were passing it one item at a time. But because it's all lumped together into one big bill, there are a number of sticking points that keep both sides from moving forward. Now, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Congress to take some action and to approve round 4 of this COVID relief, and I think it will ultimately happen. Just exactly what it will contain is well above my pay grade at the moment.
That was what I was going to ask you. I said, yeah. Teddy's got a crystal ball, right? So, and between you and me, I've got thing going on here.
Magic going on there.
Yeah, it's what I wondered is, okay, if I'm a job hunter, I'm out of a job right now. What I'm hearing from Lisa is, ooh, man, day after Christmas, wow, that's going to be, that potentially could be bad. So is there, from a federal level, are there things, are there legislative initiatives that will be due to expire, like with the state, if things are not extended?
Well, I don't remember the parameters of the executive order concerning the $300 is concerned, but that can't be enough. Can't be unlimited because of funding. So I think we really have to pass something between now and the end of the year to preserve those benefits beyond the December 26th deadline. You know, everybody says, well, it's going to be Christmas and it's a rough time to lose a job. I can tell you from experience, any time is a rough time to lose a job. So I wish my crystal ball was as accurate as Teddy's, but it's not, unfortunately.
A lot of things going on, and as just some peon sitting here with a curtain behind me, you know, I just want people to be happy. I want people to get jobs. I want company. I want everything.
Sure.
I want people to get along and everything work out. But, you know, the devil's in the details. And as you pointed out, Mike, you've got competing interests and, you know, accountability to voters and just a whole host of things that, and I really appreciate both of you coming in to kind of help try to sort things out. I know we've got about 13 minutes or so left. Mike, most of what you had wanted to talk about, I think we've touched on. We've looked at the lame duck. We've looked at the new Congress being voted on in what, January? Is it January 5th? Georgia is the two.
Georgia's on the 5th. Yeah.
Okay, so we may not know about that until.
Could be. Who knows? Yeah.
Out there.
But things are way different in a special election or a runoff.
Okay.
The turnout will be greatly diminished from what we had in the general election. So the counting should move more smoothly, just sheer numbers of ballots to count. And it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know of any other time in history that we've had two Senate seats from the same state up for a runoff at the same time. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Hey, remember, it's 2020. We're in the year 2020.
Yeah, but it'll be 2021 when that happens. I hope that's not
it. It never ends. We're giving not an extension to job hunters. We're giving an extension to the year of 2020, and it's going to go into 2020.
No way.
Whether you like it or not.
Take that wicked stuff out of here, boy.
Teddy, you okay?
Yeah, I got a point. My magic that I thought I had, Randy, does not extend to our attendees, so I apologize that you do not have the 3 dots that I was referring to, but no worries. I will put all of that content that's relevant into the YouTube channel, so you'll see it in that description. So I apologize there. And Lisa has dropped a lot of nuggets in there. Chan said he didn't see it, but it's in there, and I promise you I'll get it. Or I'll hunt Lisa down and get her to redo it for me.
Mike, wanted to ask you. Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you what I asked Lisa regarding kind of doing that autopsy and looking back, saying, okay, the poop hit the fan back in March. What should we have done differently if this were to happen again? What have we learned and that whole thing? Looking back, what can you share with us?
It's easy to play armchair quarterback, Monday morning quarterback, and say, well, we should have done this, should have done that. Truth of the matter is, I think we did a pretty amazing job. Let's talk about the CARES Act, the first big COVID relief act. The House was not in session. The Senate took a bill that had been passed by the House, gutted it in committee, inserted the provisions of the CARES Act, passed it, sent it to the House passed it, and the president signed it in 9 days. So to go from nothing to the CARES Act in 9 days becoming law is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to understand a little bit of civics. Appropriations, it was an appropriations bill, involves spending money. Those have to start in the House of Representatives. And here we are facing COVID emergency, and the House is not in session. And so the Senate leadership got together and said, okay, we're going to start it. And we're going to start it by taking this piece of legislation that had already passed, amending it, completely obliterating the original contents, and sending it back to the House for concurrence. And that happened, again, right up to the president's signature in less than 9 days. And when you think that part of that involved the things that Lisa's involved in, a great portion of that involved this whole unemployment situation, the change in who was eligible and how much they were going to get, and the federal supplement to it, for the states, all 50 states, to respond to that and get some payments coming out. It was pretty amazing when you think about all the different software packages that had to be updated, all the different processes in each state being a little bit different. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So what would I have done differently? I would shut down social media immediately because so much misinformation, so much inaccurate information, so much really harmful inaccurate information was spread through social media. I mean, suddenly your next door neighbor became a healthcare professional. Suddenly you were your other neighbor was an expert on how things should be done at the federal level, and one was expert on how to do it. And instead of just listening to the experts and letting the experts talk and tell you how to handle yourself and your own personal business, and,
Yeah.
we just decided we're just going to bombard the world with misinformation, and that was not good.
You make some really good points, Mike. I'm sorry, Teddy. No, he hit on a few good things, because the state agencies had no idea what was coming down in these CARES packages and so forth. So, and I think North Carolina was one of the first few states that actually got these federal extensions processed. There was reprogramming to the system, there was identifying eligibility and so forth. So that's a very, very good point. And yes, there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of misinformation that we had to overcome too.
Mike, Lisa, thank you very much for joining us. Really good. This is a cool duo, Randy. Yeah.
They know their style. I tell you, I was talking to somebody, I forget who, somebody, just a day or two ago, and they were commenting on the show and just how much they enjoyed it. And I forget the exact exchange, but the gist of it was that Teddy, you and I get a free education every week. We get to learn straight from people who know what's up. And whether it's the legislative piece or I've learned so much over these last months that it's been incredible. And to have smart people on here that can articulate different topics, we can help people at the same time. So it's been a great ride. I look to continue it. I'm thankful for you guys for appearing, and Teddy for our friendship. And I was going to ask both Lisa and Mike, since we are headed toward Thanksgiving next week, and our show will be about job hunters. We'll have at least a couple, maybe 3, 4, who are job hunters. And while that kind of is a rough time, job hunting, but yet they're still thankful. They can find things to be thankful for, and also offer maybe some inspiration and some tips for others who are going through that. I imagine if you live long enough, both of you at some point have been a job hunter. And, as you worked in radio, Mike, I mean, come on.
That's right.
What do you mean? That never happens in radio.
Two kinds of people in radio: those that have been fired and those that will be fired.
It's like a manager in baseball.
I've been both.
Yeah, absolutely. But what are some things you guys are thankful for? If you don't mind sharing some things that just on your mind.
This may sound a little self-serving, but I'm thankful for my job. I left the radio business now 15 years ago.
Wow,
15 years ago in next week. And Senator Burr called me shortly after that hit was in the paper and asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I don't know. He said, well, let's get out through the holidays and you come talk to me. And I went and spoke with him and Dean Myers, who's our state director, and they offered me an opportunity to work for Senator, and I worked for his campaign office for 6 years and then moved into this job. And as his field representative in now 27 counties. And I love my job. I travel central and western North Carolina every day. I travel the back roads. I visit with people like yourselves, with mayors and county managers and city managers and veterans and veteran service officers. And I mean, every day, every hour of every day is different, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm also thankful for NCWorks, and I want to tell you that those folks that come on your call next week who have not visited NCWorks, if you're looking for a job and you haven't visited NCWorks, you probably don't deserve a job, because it's a no-brainer. Such a great resource of not only how to look for a job, but other resources on finding job training. All the federal job programs are centered under the same roof at the NCWorks Career Center. So what a great resource that very few people take advantage of, Michael.
Cool.
So, Lisa,
Yeah.
I'm thankful for you and the work that you guys do. I think it's
Thank you, Mike. That's very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just piggyback off what Mike said. I'm very thankful for my job. You might have a very hard or stressful day, and my mother, God rest her soul, she'd be like, Lisa, that is a good job for you, and it puts a roof over you and your kids' heads. And my response would always be, that's right. Just like family, it drives me insane, but I wouldn't take $1 million for either one of you. So I was thankful for my job, but I was more thankful in the sense that I could help, even if it was just to lend a listening ear. Some of these stories were very humbling. These individuals that you spoke to on a daily basis when all this first started, it was just very humbling to speak to these individuals. And I love working with the public, so I was just very thankful for my job and the help. And then our coworkers, we're not unemployment offices anymore. However, we basically had to eat those words and turn around and put our unemployment insurance hats back on and become unemployment insurance agents to some extent. So I was just thankful that the staff was able to be that flexible and make that turnaround as quickly as they did. So it's a team effort from the state all the way up to, us in the local centers, all the way up to the state agencies in Raleigh, and then your Mike Fenleys and so forth. So it really is a partnership, and we all depended on one another more so ever during that time in the very beginning. So that's what I am thankful for.
And it's always easy to complain. I mean,
Sure.
who hasn't complained about the government, right? I mean, come on.
Right.
Everybody complains about the government, but you know what? Both of you are good examples of when poop hits the fan and things had to move quickly. The behemoth that is the federal government and the 50 state governments, they were able to not turn on a dime, but pretty darn close to make things not perfect, but to really address a critical and timely need. I know we've only got a moment or two left. And Ted, I want to make sure that we put a word out for our next week's show. I mentioned that we'll have job hunters on, and many of you who are on this call are job hunters. If you are thankful for things in your life and you have some inspirational things you'd like to share, or maybe some tips, reach out to Teddy or me, because we'd love to have you on. I think we have 2 so far that have committed to being on, and we could take another couple, probably 1 or 2. So if you'd like to be a part of the show, reach out to Teddy or me, and we'll have a little chat and see if that'll work out for us. But again,
we're also looking for a story about what gratitude means to you during job search. And I know these stories out there because I hear them all the time. That, things are tough and, with lots of worry, but there's something else that's a part of your life that brings balance to that painful side. And so if you have a story like that and you want to share, or if you know someone who does have a story and would be willing to share, again, as Randy said, connect with the 2 of us.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa Lamb with NCWorks and Mike Fenley, Field Representative with Senator Richard Burr. We appreciate both of you very much. Lisa, I'll probably see you tomorrow down the hall, as I'll be back in the Goodwill corporate location for the next couple of days, Lord willing. So there's that. And Teddy, I think we
accomplished it. We did it. All right.
We're good.
You guys have a great week. See you soon.
All right.
Bye, gentlemen.
Thank you.